The air in the firehouse always tasted different on Christmas Eve. It was the same recycled, vaguely metallic air as any other night, but it carried a weight to it, a ghost of pine needles and roasting turkey. For 15 years I'd breathed it in. It was the smell of duty. Outside, the world twinkled with fairy lights and life slowed to a gentle, festive hum. Inside Station 4, life was held in a state of suspended animation, a breath held in anticipation of the one sound that could shatter the silent night: the alarm. My locker door was plastered with a decade's worth of my son Leo's Christmas drawings. A lopsided Santa from when he was 4, a surprisingly detailed reindeer from last year. Tucked into the corner of the metal frame was a photo of my wife, Sarah. It was a candid shot from a summer barbecue, her head thrown back in a laugh, the kind of laugh I felt I hadn't truly heard in years. I traced the edge of the photo with a callous thumb. I told myself this was a noble sacrifice. Captain Miller, the guy who holds the line so other families can sleep soundly, nestled all snug in their beds. It was a good story, a hero's story, and I repeated it to myself every time the guilt started to creep in, a cold draft under the door of my heart. The guilt was particularly sharp this year. Leo was 9, that perfect, fleeting age where the magic of Santa Claus was still real but fragile, like a soap bubble. He'd made me swear on his Lego Millennium Falcon that I would be there in the morning. Promise, Dad? The first one to see the presents. I'd promised, but my gut churned with the familiar lie. Sarah hadn't said much when I left. She just gave me that look, a quiet, weary resignation that was somehow worse than yelling. Her silence was a language I had become fluent in, and it spoke of empty chairs at the dinner table, of solo parent-teacher conferences, of a life lived in the patient, lonely shadow of a siren. I was just settling in with a mug of lukewarm coffee, the distant sound of carols from a radio in the rec room lulling me into a false sense of peace, when the world tore open. The alarm didn't just ring. It screamed, a violent, electronic shriek that bypassed the ears and went straight to the adrenal gland. The dispatcher's voice was clipped, urgent. Structure fire, multi-unit residential. 14th and Elm. Reports of heavy smoke and visible flames, possible entrapment. 14th and Elm. The old Pendleton building. A 6-story brick tinderbox, filled with old wiring and older residents. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a fender bender or a false alarm. This was the real thing. The one you train for and pray never comes. Especially not tonight. I grabbed my turnout gear, the familiar weight, a cold comfort. I made the call I always made, the one I dreaded. Sarah picked up on the first ring. Jake. Her voice was small, sleepy. It's a big one, sir. The Pendleton. I don't know when I'll be home. Don't wait up. There was a pause on the other end. A cavern of unspoken words. Then, just a sigh, so faint I almost missed it. Be safe, she whispered, and the line went dead. The words I needed to hear, I love you, it's okay, were absent. In their place was only the chilling echo of her resignation. As we rolled out, the truck's horn blasting through the silent, decorated streets, I saw families through their picture windows, gathered around trees, bathed in a warm, golden light. They were living in a world I was meant to protect but could never seem to join. I was on the outside, looking in, heading toward the flames. The scene at the Pendleton was a vision from hell. A Bosch painting dropped into a quiet Christmas night. Flames, a furious, living orange, were pouring from the 4th-floor windows, licking up the side of the old brick building with a hungry roar. The air was thick with a toxic black smoke that tasted like burning plastic and despair. My training took over, a cold, clear wave of logic washing over the knot of fear in my gut. I was Captain Miller again. I issued orders, my voice amplified by the radio, a beacon of calm in the chaos. Engine 1, lay a 5-inch from the hydrant on the corner. Ladder 2, get the stick to the roof, we need to vent. Miller to command. I'm taking my crew for primary search on the 4th floor. We moved with the brutal efficiency of a well-oiled machine, each man a cog in the mechanism of saving lives. The heat inside was a physical blow, a solid wall of superheated air that stole your breath and seared your lungs through the respirator. The world dissolved into a terrifying, monochrome landscape of smoke and shadow, punctuated by the angry red glow of the fire's core. We crawled on our bellies, sweeping our arms through the darkness, searching for the living. We found a family huddled in a fifth-floor apartment, a young couple with a toddler, and guided them through the smoke-choked stairwell to the paramedics below. We pulled an elderly man from his bed, disoriented and gasping. Each rescue was a small victory against the inferno, but the fire was relentless. It fought back, spreading through the walls, feasting on old wood and forgotten memories. Hours bled together in a grueling cycle of heat, smoke, and adrenaline. Midnight came and went. It was officially Christmas morning. A bitter irony settled in my bones. While my son was likely stirring in his sleep, dreaming of presents, I was here, battling a dragon in a brick castle. My mind, in a rare moment of quiet as I directed a hose stream, flashed to my own living room. I saw Sarah, alone on the couch, the lights of the tree blinking on her tired face. I saw Leo's stocking, limp and empty by the fireplace. The image was so vivid, so painful, it almost brought me to my knees. The accusation from the title of my life story was being written in real time. I had abandoned them. It was then, deep into the 5th hour of the fight, when we thought the building was clear, that a frantic paramedic ran up to my command post. "Captain, we did a head count. A woman who lives in 3B, an Eleanor Gable, she's not accounted for. A neighbor said she's elderly, lives alone, never leaves. 3B. We had cleared that floor an hour ago. My blood ran cold. Protocols were clear. A secondary search was required. Diaz, with me?" I barked, and we plunged back into the belly of the beast. The smoke on the 3rd floor was lighter now, the main body of the fire having moved upwards, but the heat was still oppressive. We kicked open the door to 3B, and there she was. The apartment was filled with a hazy, gray smoke, but she wasn't trapped or unconscious. She was sitting in an old armchair, perfectly still, clutching a small, silver-framed photograph to her chest. She was a tiny woman, swallowed by the oversized chair, her white hair like a halo in the gloom. "Mom? Ma'am, you have to come with us. The building isn't safe," I yelled, my voice muffled by the mask. She didn't move. She just stared at the photograph. I moved closer, my frustration rising. "We didn't have time for this. Ma'am, we have to go. Now." I reached for her arm. She finally looked up at me, her eyes pale and cloudy, focusing on the insignia on my helmet. "He had one just like that," she said, her voice a fragile, papery whisper. "My Arthur. He was a captain, too." The words stopped me cold. They were so unexpected, so profoundly human in this inhuman environment. "He always said the worst part wasn't the fire," she continued, her gaze drifting back to the photo. "It was the quiet afterwards. Coming home to a house that had kept on living without you." A chasm opened up in my chest. Her words were a perfect, devastating echo of the ache in my own soul, the fear I could never name. I looked at the picture in her hands. It was a black and white photo of a young, proud firefighter. I knelt down in front of her, the crunch of debris under my knees loud in the sudden silence. I wasn't Captain Miller anymore. I was Jake, a husband and a father who was terrified of the quiet. What was his name? I asked, my own voice softer now. "Arthur," she repeated. "He missed our boy's first Christmas. A warehouse fire down by the docks. He saved 6 men that night. A hero, they called him." She looked at me, a deep, knowing sadness in her eyes. "But our boy just wanted his daddy. And I just wanted my husband. A hero is a wonderful thing to be for the world, Captain. But it can be a lonely thing to be for your family." Every word was a key turning a lock deep inside me. She wasn't being stubborn. She was clinging to the one place that held the ghost of her husband, terrified of leaving him behind a second time. My training manual had a procedure for this: physically remove the non-compliant victim. But my heart, newly awakened by this small, brave woman, had a different plan. This wasn't about clearing a building anymore. This was about honoring a memory. I reached out and gently took her gloved hand. "Then let's not leave him behind," I said. "Let's get Arthur out of here together." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, she gave me a small, wavering smile. She held the photograph out to me, and I carefully tucked it inside my coat, a sacred trust against my chest. And then, leaning on me, Eleanor Gable walked out of the smoke and back into the world. Leading Eleanor out of the building felt different from the other rescues. It was slower, more deliberate. It was a human act, not a tactical one. My crew saw the change in me. They saw me holding the old woman's hand, saw the tenderness in a situation that usually demanded only brute force. As we emerged into the cold, pre-dawn air, a smattering of applause broke out from the small crowd of onlookers. They were cheering for the firefighter who had saved a life, but I knew the truth. In that smoky room, Eleanor Gable had saved a part of me. The fire was finally brought under control as the first weak rays of Christmas sun broke over the horizon. The Pendleton stood scarred and blackened, but it was still standing. We had won. But as I stood there, drenched in sweat and covered in soot, the victory felt hollow. All I could think about was the quiet waiting for me at home. I drove back through streets now quiet for a different reason. The festive lights looked garish and mocking in the pale morning light. I parked in my driveway and just sat in the truck for a long time, the silver frame of Arthur's picture pressing against my ribs. I was terrified to go inside. Terrified of the silence, of the disappointment, of the life that had kept on living without me. I finally pushed the door open. The house was still. The Christmas tree lights were blinking in the dim light, casting colorful shadows on the walls. And there on the couch was Sarah, wrapped in a quilt, asleep. Tear tracks glistened on her cheeks. On the coffee table, a single plate with a cold, uneaten slice of Christmas pie sat next to a cup of coffee. She had waited up after all. The sight broke something in me that the fire never could. I wasn't a hero who had returned from battle. I was just a man who had broken his promise, who had let the most important things in his life grow cold. I sank to my knees on the rug, the exhaustion hitting me like a physical force. I didn't make a sound, but she must have sensed my presence. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at me, at my filthy, smoke-stained face, and I saw a flicker of the old anger, the familiar hurt. But then, she saw something else. She saw the defeat in my posture, the apology I couldn't yet speak. I didn't offer excuses. I didn't talk about the rescues or the danger. I just looked at the woman I loved, the woman who had held our world together while I was off fighting other people's fires, and I finally told her the truth. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice cracking. Mrs. Gable was right. It's the quiet that's the worst part. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but this one felt different. It wasn't a tear of sadness, but of understanding. She reached out her hand, and I took it, clinging to it like a lifeline. Later, we woke Leo. He didn't care that it was morning, that Santa had already come and gone. He just saw his dad, sitting there by the tree. His face lit up with a joy so pure it felt like the sun coming out after a long storm. He launched himself into my arms, not caring about the soot or the smell of smoke. "You're here!" he yelled, his small arms wrapped tightly around my neck. And in that moment, holding my son, with my wife's hand on my back, I finally understood. My whole career, I had defined my worth by my absence, by the sacrifices I made. I thought that leaving them was what proved my love. I had it all backwards. My purpose wasn't just in the firehouse, in the heat of the battle. It was here, in the warmth of a hug, in the quiet rhythm of my family's breathing. I still wear the captain's badge. I still answer the alarm when it rings. But I no longer see my duty and my life as two separate things. That night, I spent Christmas fighting flames that could destroy a building, but a stranger in the smoke taught me how to finally come home and protect my family from the cold.